Hi, good morning. Thanks everyone for being here. I know that what time is it? It's like 10:55. If you need to stand up, stand up. Feel free to get up, wiggle a little bit, get the blood flowing. I don't mind at all. Um, like Hannah said, my name is Kim Wisensee Brown. I am a journalist turned marketer. I call myself a human-centric marketer, and we'll talk about what that means today. But I'm really happy to be here. It's an incredible group of people. The fun thing about doing this is we all are kind of at the same level, right? So this is just me getting to share some of my insights and learnings with you. Not only am I practicing in the field, I also do a lot of teaching as an academic. And so a lot of what I try to do is take theory and what's in practice and merge it together. So we're going to talk about marketing beyond digital and how to break through technology. And I want to start by sharing a story with you. So I've worked at a variety of different companies and brands, agencies, small businesses, large corporations like General Electric, and consistently I get the same question. I'm going to share a story with you about when I started at GE, but I've really found this happen to me across my career. I started at GE. I was leading a division of marketing in renewable energy focused on software. And I was talking with, everyone does a listening tour, right, when you start a new job or start a new department. And I was talking with the head of sales. So the head of sales was selling wind turbines. These are, you drive down to Indiana, you see the big wind farms. These are really big, complex machines with sensors built into them. These are highly technological pieces of machinery. And I really appreciate that he was so honest with me and said, "Can you just tell me what digital is? Because I see the commercials on TV." Who remembers the GE is going digital commercials? Remember that? And he's like, "But I don't know what that means. Like, am I supposed to do something? Are we just going to do digital marketing? Like, what does this going digital mean? What is this digital transformation?" And it was a really honest question. And again, as I've gone through a lot of different companies and divisions, I found that at some point, everyone has that question. Either what is digital marketing? Where does it start and stop? What does it mean to go through a digital transformation? And how does it affect me? Do I even need to do anything about it? So we go to dinner with a customer a couple weeks later and having a good conversation. And the person says, "I got to be honest with you, we've had a ton of meetings, but how does this align to my goals? What is this going to do for me? Like, I get it and I get what you're doing, but how does this help me?" And again, it sticks in my memory because I've heard that even in my current role and with a lot, as a former consultant, as someone who does a lot of advising with business owners and workshops, as a marketing leader, I hear this consistently. What does it do for me? I get it. I get how it works, but how does it tie back to my bottom line? Because at the end of the day, none of us are volunteers. We're doing this to make money. And so how does all this digital attach to my business goals and my revenue? And then finally, how do I know it's really working? How does it all get connected? Whether it was GE or even at our current company today at AMA Insurance or agencies that I've worked at in the past, Starcom, WPP, Group M, trying to stitch together what Kenneth said, how do I know that my big omni-channel plan and everything I'm putting out is actually working and connecting to the back end? When I've got a customer success person talking to customers, and they don't know what's important or not important to the marketing person, and how are they supposed to know what to capture and collect? How does the website developer or the IT team know what kind of data is actually important? Because they're only capturing what they can capture and cleansing what they can cleanse, but I don't know what I don't know. And so there's this big question that's constantly out there of how do I know it's working? How do I know what I know? How do I know what I don't know? And how do we stitch it all together? How do we activate our teams to be really powerful? So it comes down to kind of three big challenges. One, breaking through the digital stigmatization. I don't know, has anyone found that there's still some stigma with this word digital and digital transformation and even digital marketing? Do folks still find that they're getting some questions or stares on that? Yeah, I'm seeing some hands up. It's amazing. It's actually a really polarizing word, which is funny because what is the opposite of digital? Analog? Like what, You could argue that it's all digital. So even the modifier itself is kind of questionable at this point. The second one is systems integration. So this is really what Kenneth touched on. How do we take all these disparate systems, not even within marketing, but across a company, and stitch it together? And I would take it to the next level because there's technological systems and then there's human systems and organizational systems. How do you get people to talk to each other? And then finally, data capture. So we live in a digital world. And I actually love the Great Wall of China analogy. I'm stealing that. That's an incredible way to just give a visual of how much data is being generated and consumed. But who has a customer success team or some kind of call center that they use, right? So how do you capture that conversation? Is it just, are you using voice to text translations? Where does that go? Where do those words go? If you're at a conference, let's say you're at one of your annual conferences, we just had ours with the AMA. How do I capture that conversation and turn that into data? Because it technically is data, but capturing all that data, whether it's online or offline, and doing something with it is a massive challenge. So these are things that I've been thinking about for a while and translating, and what I want to share with you in the 30 minutes that we have is how I've started distilling those challenges into solutions that are actually something I can do today. That idea of controlling what you can control. So what I found is that we're in this trend of becoming human-centric marketers. And what does that mean? It's twofold. On the one hand, we've got a consumer marketplace, all of us are consumers, who are demanding simplicity, transparency, and authenticity from the businesses and the products that we purchase from and the services that we consume. We are over the complexity and the jargon, right? We're not impressed by how complex your algorithm is or by all the jargon that you put in something. Now we live in a world where it's like, just tell it to me what it is. I get it, you built an app. Who cares and what's it gonna do for me? So we gotta be simple. Authentic, right? Everyone wants to know who you really are. Don't be fake. You see that example of the Pepsi commercial with, was it Kylie Jenner? Was it Kylie or Kendall? I don't remember. But there was a backlash because Pepsi actually doesn't stop protests because it's a can of soda or soda pop or pop. It breaks down. Coke did the same thing in the 90s and it worked great. So we've got this authenticity trend, this idea of just be you, own who you are. You are a beverage. There is no way that you are creating world peace, you're a beverage, right? So own yourself, be authentic in who you are. And then finally, transparency. We live in a hacker world. Recently, over the last 10 years, because we're all just more savvy and digital and a lot more well-versed in the language, and with the kind of advent of open source really becoming more mainstream, and with hackers pulling the curtains off of a lot of things being done behind the scenes, we want transparency. Everlane was one of the first companies to really adopt radical transparency in their supply chain. We want to know how it's built. We want to know where our data is going. We want to know who your employees are and how you treat, your factory workers. So as consumers, we want these three things. The same thing goes for businesses and marketers. And what's interesting, and this is the second side of the fold, not only do we expect this of each other, but we expect this of brands themselves, which is hard because these are all human characteristics being attached to non-human entities. A corporation is not a human being. A corporation is a legal entity. So how do you take how we want to treat each other, how we want to be treated, and our expectations in the world today, this human-centric trend and shift is happening globally, and not only apply it to each other and to our customers, but to a brand? How do you really distill that to address the challenges of systems integrations, the stigmatization of digital, collecting data, with the fact that now brands have to be human and make money at the same time? That's a massive challenge. That's what everyone typically is feeling today. This idea of how do you become a human brand with the challenges of digital. So what I've put together are 6 steps on how to navigate this maze to become human-centric marketers and really go beyond digital, so using technology to create real human connections that are profitable, that actually make us money. So again, feel free to get up and walk around and stretch and raise your hand if you have questions. But I'm going to take a few minutes and walk through each of the 6 steps. And feel free, you can connect with me. I'll have my information on afterwards. I'd love to keep the conversation going. This should not be surprising to anyone because we're all senior marketers in the room, but hopefully it gives you a framework and helps maybe give a little more credence to trends that you're identifying. So the first one is define yourself. This is a little bit different because of the order. So step 1, do you. And this is really different with the human-centric shift. Typically, you say, know your customer, know what they want, and then identify how you can serve that. You can't do that if you don't have a true brand identity. Because anything you do, if you just start with the customer, will come off inauthentic. Because all you're trying to do is people please. It's like walking into the room at a party, and being kind of that awkward person who doesn't have a lot of self-confidence, and you're just trying to be whomever that person wants you to be. You can see through it. It seems fake. So the first step as marketers is to create a brand identity that truly is a 360 human aspect of who your brand is. How old is your brand? If you had to put a person to it. Are they young? Are they old? Are they male? Are they female? Are they androgynous? Are they funny? Are they the trusted uncle thought leader? Are they the peer that can talk to you and understand what it is and give you those shared experiences? Because all of that drives your brand voice. It drives what channels you're going to participate on. There's some brands that if you're going to be that trusted advisor, older person, you're probably not going to be on Snapchat, which is fine. But if you do your brand identity first, you'll be able to make that decision very easily because it's going to be common sense, because you'll know who you are. What is your place in the world? Why do you exist? This is the reason why startups and disruptors are doing so well when technically they have less resources and less awareness and less marketing dollars, because they have an identity and a soul. They have a story. Why do you exist? Because I had a bad experience and I solved that problem. Because I'm trying to make a difference in the world. Because I wanted a career change. There's a lot of reasons on why you exist and who you are. Smaller companies and disruptor companies do this really well because of their size and how they've typically gotten founded in the last 10 years. So who here is part of a tiny startup? Do you find that you can probably drill down into a founder story a little bit easier because it's relatively recent, right? And you've got a smaller team probably, and so putting a human face to it, you're kind of just reflecting who's in the office, right? Because you're still new. It's easier to identify yourself. Who here is part of a large corporation or a big old company? Yeah, a little bit harder. So we're working on our founder story right now. Why do we exist? I don't know, probably because, 30 years ago, someone said you make a lot of money in insurance. Right? How's that for a founder story? So you've really got to dig in and say, well, is that going to sell me? And if that's what it is, then I don't necessarily have a good founder story, but what do I do today? What differentiates us today? So as the American Medical Association's insurance company, the AMA Insurance, we take care of physicians. Physicians spend their careers taking care of other people. We take care of them. And that's built into our DNA. That's built into our mission. It seems really apparent up front, but once you frame that out, it becomes really clear that our persona is much more like that one doctor that you love, that might be around the same age as you, but is that trusted advisor, that expert, that consultant that's going to make sure that you're okay. That's your team of caregivers. So we did that work on ourselves, and that's going to drive our strategy forward. So this first step, even if you know it, dust off your mission and vision statement. Figure out who your brand is, do an exercise. And a quick tip, magazines do this really, really well. If you look at editors-in-chief of big publications, they personify the magazine. That is very intentional. They do that on purpose. They get wardrobe allowances and they drive that magazine. So magazines are really good examples of how to personify and create a human identity around a kind of non-human brand entity, right? A book, it's a piece of paper. But if I say Esquire versus GQ, you get a picture in your head immediately. If I say Cosmo versus Vanity Fair, you get a picture in your head immediately. Vogue, right? So you can call the New Yorker. You can conjure up these pictures because it's very intentional, because they've taken a magazine and they made a human around it. So the voice, the tone, the pictures that they use, the way they position themselves, if you're having a hard time, finding your human brand, pick up a magazine and try to, if you had to make yourself a magazine, what would that look like? Number 2, demystify the jargon. As marketers, we probably have go-to words in what we talk about. When I was at GE, it was the word digital, and we literally said, okay, no one's allowed to use the word digital anymore because it doesn't mean anything anymore. And we said, what are we trying to say when we say digital? Is it fast? Is it data-driven? Is it connected? Is it automated? Like, what does digital mean? For insurance, protect yourself. Who doesn't say that? Well, yeah, no kidding, right? What's insurance? What does that mean? What am I trying to tell this person? What's the story? How do I say that in 10 words? And so the exercise after defining your identity is to pick out, because you're already in market, right? So now we're rehabbing the airplane while it's flying with people on it. Look at the words that you use over and over and over again that are really just meaningless jargon because of overuse. And do a workshop and unpack them. If you took that, you probably have 1 or 2 words that you use in everything that you think is great, but really doesn't mean anything, but it's really critical to your message. Do a workshop. Take that word out. How would you say that same message without that piece of jargon? Right? That disrupts your audience. It really makes you do that extra work to explain to people what you're really trying to say. Number 3, architect the intersections. I'm a big fan. I learned this actually from a great sales manager of mine. I sold software and data for Axiom LiveRamp for a while. Control what you can control. So when you architect your intersections, we will not get Facebook and Google to play nice. We just won't. We can't control that. I can't control someone dropping their cookies or cleaning their cache and jumping from devices. I can't control a family from having a family iPad and letting people share it. But architect your intersections so you understand what you know and what you don't know. It could be as simple as grabbing a big piece of paper at a conference room and doing a customer journey and then saying, can I capture this data? Yes or no? Are we capturing this data? Yes or no? Can we? Do we have it and can we get it? And if we can't, at least we know where our gaps are. It's a really great exercise to do with your customer success, your IT department, marketing, and then if you have separate analytics, I would say probably depending on your analytics person, maybe bring them in after. Depending on, they probably would say I don't want to sit through this, just tell me what you find out. But architect your intersections. It's literally doing a blueprint of your house. You have plumbing in your house. There's water going places. Do you know where those pipes go? Your HVAC system, do you know where all the vents are? Do you know if there's a vent that goes nowhere? I've heard of houses that have these fake vents for some reason. I don't know. I have a friend in Jersey who actually opened up the vent, it went nowhere. Do this for your marketing. You might not be able to solve for it or control it, but do the work so you know what you know and you know what you can control. Number 4, become a journalist. There's 2 parts to this. Part 1, as a journalist myself, don't worry so much about selling. Be really inquisitive and look for the truth. There isn't necessarily always 2 sides to a story. Journalists are very data-driven, and in order to get information, you have to do a lot of research and talk to people. So you're looking online, you're reading primary evidence, and you're going out in the market and you're talking to people. You might not use those interviews. You might actually go down a different path and find out there's not a story to tell. But as a journalist, just say, I want to know, so in my current role, I want to know about disability insurance for physicians. What is that? What does that mean? If I had to buy it, how do I even buy it? If I was a journalist doing an article on disability insurance, the angle would probably be how incredibly opaque it is. right? It's really, Google it. It's like, it's hard, man. I do this for a living. It took me 4 months. But I did the work and I found the story. And now as a marketer, I can say, I can solve that. That's my differentiator because that is a mess. And how dare I ask my customers who are doctors who literally save lives for a living to do that amount of work? I should do that for them. And that's going to set us apart in the marketplace. Same thing with GE. I'm going to sit in those conversations and listen to my sellers talk to their customers. Are we really different? Are we the first people doing digital? Do they have teams that are actually doing this themselves? I worked with a company who does medical technology. What do people care about? What's the buying decision? What is the mindset when you go in? What is that like? So as a journalist, just do it for the pure sake of the story. Don't worry about what you're going to do with it yet. You'll find those nuggets as you come out, like my discovery with disability insurance, and you can turn it into something. And then the second part is tell stories. When you look at journalism, and we can get into, a call to action at the end in journalism, but typically they're not, it's just like, here you go. Here's the story. Here's the person. It's always about people. Tell the story. People are smart. They get it. Give them a human interest story. Make it about people. Give them a story arc. And then at the end, give them something to do about it. And I think that's where journalists can make the best marketers with a lot of training. And actually, as marketers, we can take the best parts of journalism and be incredibly effective. Because how many people have read an article that really touched them and they went, I wish someone told me what I can do to do something with this information, right? Wouldn't that be nice if some articles that were really powerful ended with a call to action? Like, great. I love it. You sold me. We need to do suicide prevention. What's the number? Who do I call? How do I give money? Do you want me to call my lobbyist? Like, what do I do? As marketers, we get that. Let's give them that call to action. Make the best story in whatever format makes sense for that story. Is it a picture, an infographic, a long form white paper, a quick video, a podcast? You can do all this on your phone, on your smartphone, right? Because journalism isn't the most polished thing ever. It's all citizen journalism now. And then give them a call to action. What can I do about this? Start simple, then scale. This is a jargon phrase. But I pull it up there because we can actually do a lot of really cool start simple and scale things now that minimize your risk exposure. In the organizations I've been a part of, and this really gets into the challenges with data silos, data gathering, there's a lot of infrastructure cost to that. We all have jobs to do every day, so then trying to figure out these bigger problems while you're in your day-to-day is really hard. So we talk about managing the cost of learning while driving innovation, and managing your risk exposure. So is anyone in like a retail type environment, e-commerce? No? So, a little bit. You have clients that do it? Yeah. And anyone in kind of an education, teaching services space? Okay. So, as hot as the market is right now, and I don't know if you get a chance to kind of walk around Chicago, there's a ton of vacancies, ton of store vacancies. Restaurants are picking up on this quickly because restaurants have $0. It's a super lean business model. Minimize your risk exposure and bring your brand to life with a pop-up store. If you have a brand identity or you want to take something offline and create a real human connection and get people in the store, why do a qualitative research in a market research environment and make a pop-up store? Get a kiosk in a mall. Use some of this extra real estate. They're doing it for artists. They're doing it for restaurants. Why couldn't you do it for education? Do a free class. Bring it in. Hack education. If I was a startup and I had no money, what would I do? I'd get a kiosk. I'd make sure everyone walking by knew who I was. I'd get free market research. I'd have a phone on a tripod. I'd get all my video done. I'd have releases right there, people signing them. Hack it. Do it like a one-man band. Go find a journalist at all the universities around here who's a student that wants to build their portfolio. They'll take videos for you for free. And then go find someone else that's in film school and they'll edit it for you. These are not hard things, but you can minimize your risk exposure, start simple and scale by leveraging, what happened in the real estate market, some really cool opportunities, and the reality that people feel disconnected online and they want to be in person. Baby boomers want in-person experiences. Gen X wants in-person experiences. Gen Z is all about experiences, so they can share them on social media. So this idea of coming offline and bringing in person is really valuable, but you can do it small in scale, and then you can test a social strategy. Because if it doesn't work, you didn't have this massive footprint. You didn't blow it out. You can easily turn it off and move on, right? And if it works, then you've got this model that you can take and replicate. So in our business right now, we do a lot of education. So how do I build out an education framework to teach young physicians the importance of how to manage their debt, save, and protect themselves? Building out modular education systems, and I went and found an education intern. She's incredible. She's going to be starting. She's from Northwestern. She's studying education and learning frameworks. What better person to come in and help me build an education module to talk to my prospective customers? So all these things are ways that for very little footprint, very little risk, you can manage your cost of learning. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I didn't expend a lot of resources. And you can very quickly start seeing what's going to work and what doesn't work, and take integrations of systems that you're testing and do it in kind of a mini pop-up. You can get multiple departments together if you do a pop-up store or an education module. That's a great way to beta test department integration and systems integrations. And then finally, redefining innovation. We're talking about going beyond this idea of technology and digital and using it to create profitable human connections internally as well as externally. So we talked a lot about external. Internally, it's really important to activate the people that you already have. And someone asked this question about influencers at their company, right? I would take it, other side of the same coin and say redefine innovation. So typically, people think of innovation and they think of Steve Jobs, the iPhone, someone who's doing the next dating app, right? Like those are really big ideas. They're market changing. They've made a difference in the world. They're disruptive, right? Spot hero, like, that's such a great idea. I could totally disrupt parking garages or the education system with MOOCs. And there's such a bunch of innovation going on in the industry. And that's great, but that's only one kind of innovation. And it actually ends up alienating everyone that works on or with you from becoming innovative themselves. So redefine what innovation means. And I put together this matrix, and I think this is going to be shared so you can steal it. But there's lots of different kinds of innovation. So everyone in your organization is officially now innovators. No one gets a cop-out. No one gets to say, I'm not innovative, so that's not me. Or that's somebody else's job. I'm not smart. I'm not creative. I'm not innovative. Nope, everyone's innovators. You might be iterative, right? Where you're optimizing, right? Very few people, very few companies are going to do net new innovation. I don't think we're going to see whatever the next iPhone is in the next 5 years. Digital assistants, right? But that's just audio on a smartphone. That's essentially a smartphone without the screen. Twitter was just an iterative innovation on Facebook. So we're not going to see some crazy thing in the next 5 years. What's going to make brands stand apart is iterating on what's already there. So make sure your teams understand this framework. If someone builds a macro in Excel and it saves them 5 minutes and they're not innovators, they'll just say, I just did my job, and they'll sit on it. If that same person is an innovator, they'll say, I just did this really cool iterative innovation technique that helps us optimize our business. It is my right and duty as an innovator to share it and make sure it grows. So everyone can adopt that, and that 5 minutes saved times the amount of people in your organization and the amount of money an hour is actually going to generate more efficiencies and potentially more money. That's innovation and profit and savings. So Redefine innovation for yourself and your organization, because as you start to change your mindset, and if everyone thinks of themselves as innovators, you're going to get some incredible ideas. They're going to be small. They're probably going to be more on optimizing and being iterative, but at scale, that's game changing. That's the kind of stuff that makes money in a really crowded, commoditized marketplace. That's how you start to break through the noise on the internet and people look differently, because you're just giving them something different to change with. It's just a tweak. It's just something really thoughtful. It's a different angle on a photo. It's a different way to use social media. But if everyone in your organization are innovators and they have that idea, it's their right and duty now to share it, because that's how you're going to win. So I'm actually really curious. Those were the 6 tips. If anyone would like to share, I'm fascinated because we're all senior marketers in the room. Did anyone have either an aha moment or something that resonated or complemented what they're trying to do in their organizations today? Because I think we're all doing the same work. Or something different. Is there anything that you're like, you totally missed this? This is, yeah, go ahead.
Really liked number 4 in terms of becoming a journalist.
Yeah.
There's so many stories to tell, and I think taking the concept of journalism, which some people think is obsolete, people don't read papers anymore, but the elements of it are really critical, I think, to what we do. The research, collecting the data, you might not use it now, you might use it later, you might use a snippet of it. But finding the stories, many times, I'm a social media specialist.
Yep.
Things don't come to me. I have to go find them. I've got to dig. I work in education. Why are there 6 people in tutus in the corner? There's a story there. I need to find it.
Yeah.
They're not going to tell me. I need to dig it out of them. So I like that concept because it's something old that is still relevant.
Yeah.
And then we can reconstitute that concept.
Yes.
And make our jobs more relevant.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll just piggyback on that. People are actually reading and consuming more journalistic content today now than ever. Different formats. But anyone who says, journalism is dead, truly, it's just the newspaper model, and they still make fine money, right? If you look at the back end numbers on newspapers, they are doing okay. They might not hit the profit margins that they want to hit, but they're not making money. The other thing, and I think you hit on this, it's a lot of digging. People don't think their stories are worth telling. Each one of you has an amazing story that to you probably seems really small, that no one would care. And yet you listen and watch them every single day in the news or on social media. So how do we as marketers bring that empathy and that human interest to convince people to tell us their stories? That's truly what journalists do. How do you get someone to break down and tell them your most valuable things and then feel important about it? Tell me about your life. Tell me about how you use this product. Tell me why Tide is so important to you. It's laundry detergent. Well, you know what? Because I don't have to think about it. Why is insurance so important to you? My product is hard to sell because no one wants to buy it. Ideally, you never use it. And if you're engaging with me, something bad's happened. And I choose to do this because I think that's fun, right? Because I can get some really interesting stories out of that. But I would just as tips, think about things like NPR StoryCorps. 2 people go in a room and interview each other, a mother and a daughter, right? A sister and a sister. And they just talk to each other about one experience. You have a microphone, you got a story. You should always go buy a lavalier from Amazon, $10. You have your smartphone, it has audio recorders on it. As long as you have a lav, you can get high quality audio you can give to anyone to edit, and honestly, it does a good job picking up the right noise. Anyone that comes by your desk, any conversation, interview the head of social media, interview your president, and just have those stories. And then go on Upwork.com, hire a freelancer who knows how to cut audio, and you've got a whole podcast. So there's a lot of cool ways to take this idea of journalism and spin it for yourself, because they're truly just people sharing their stories and talking, and even the little moments are really powerful. So I would be inspired by StoryCorps. Infographics are journalism. And I would truly think about hiring an intern or a journalist, even freelance from your organization. There's a lot of great journalism schools out there. And even a lot of journalists do freelance jobs because we want them to make money. So consider bringing that into your organization if you're having a hard time with it, even just to build a content calendar for you. Journalists do editorial calendars, and so it's really fun to tap into them, into the marketing space. Anyone else?
One of the things that I really enjoyed about this session was the demystify the jargon. At our company, we really pride ourselves on creating relationships with our clients. And however, I feel like we use a lot of jargon that if you want to really create that one-on-one trustworthy relationship, you should just shoot them straight.
Yep.
And just tell them, in layman's terms, what we're actually going to do versus using all of these big words to try to make yourself sound really special and different. And if you could just create that relationship and say, well, this is what we're going to do for you, and be honest about it. I really liked that way that you put it, to kind of get through the woods and rid of all that jargon that people speak every day.
Right. Yeah. Tell me what you're trying to tell me.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Mm-hmm. It's really hard. I would, so here's my idea, because it's not it's not like there's some magic answer and there's like a book that everyone can go read. Although I am writing a book and this will be in it. So then in a couple of months, you can go read it. Follow me on Twitter. I'll tell you when it's out. But literally it's all this stuff because I actually really enjoy the topic. And as a journalist, I like writing. I tried to gamify it. And so you could technically make it like a game. Okay, we're going to go in a room, have some flashcards, and have like the 5 jargon words that you know about. And the game, and then all your kind of marketing statements or whatever. And the game is you can't use that word. Say this sentence without this word. Go. It's hard. It's really hard. It's as soon as you get past like the ego and like, what's wrong with this word? Like, it's just a game. Say the sentence without the word. And that's really fun. And then even you could take it another step further, because if you get some really good ideas, and this is maybe where you could tap into some startups to do this for you. If you get some really good ideas, you can gamify it on your website and just like laugh at yourself, right? Like jargon word, jargon word, jargon word. This is who we are, right? Like you can, if you come out and you're like, here's all the iterations of what we do that doesn't mean anything. Here's who we are. Depending on your brand identity, if you're humorous and you can poke fun at yourself, maybe you own that. Maybe the game becomes a game that you can actually use in your marketing, and it actually becomes like kind of a fun game. But yes, I gamified it because there's a lot of stakeholders in it and it's actually really hard. But if you make it a fun game and people sit and stumble through it together, eventually you will do the work, but at least you'll laugh with each other at the same time and get buy-in. Anyone else have a aha moment? So I want to take a second because I've been to conferences, right? I feel like we go from minute to minute and we multitask and we do our best. But I actually am just going to take a second. I will use my timer on my watch. And actually, I can't use my timer on my watch because I don't have a second hand. For the Andrew in the back, can you we can count to 60, and I want the folks in the room just take 60 seconds and write down something that you want to do to take action on that you think is reasonable in the next 30 days. And if no action is no action, but you feel good about that, then that's an intentional no action. We're just going to do a quiet 60 seconds to reflect. Okay. If you didn't reflect, hopefully you got an email out. or did a mini meditation. That was kind of nice. All right. So here are the 6 secrets to break through all the noise of digital and technology and create these really profitable human connections. And again, this will be shared. These are all things that I've tested, tried, and should scale for you regardless of the size of your organization. Everyone is ready for us to connect our humanity. So thank you so much. Have an awesome rest of your day. I hope we all get to keep in touch. Feel free to reach out. My name is Kim Wisensee Brown. There's a lot of Kim Browns on LinkedIn. So look for Kim Wisensee Brown. And my Twitter is Centrally Human. So thank you so much.